My kids were very concerned this morning that I was going to mess up and embarrass them, so we brought them up here to make sure that didn't happen. So if I do start to mess up, I need you guys to cheer just to make sure we trick them. So, first off, I'd like to thank the selection committee, Jim, Steve, Emily, and everybody else who put this together. It's a great event. Obviously, these things take a lot of hard work, so I know all the inductees and attendees appreciate it. I'd also like to congratulate all the other inductees. I'd like to highlight the 2005 football team. I was actually a senior when they were freshmen, and three of the offensive linemen, or three or four, actually started games that year for us, and I'm just glad that I got to practice against them when they were 18 rather than when they were 22. Made it much easier. I'd also like to highlight Allie Kuzo. Allie was, as she mentioned, was a student athlete when I was a coach here, and Allie was, I don't think her presentation does her justice. She was kind of like the Hall of Fame of the Hall of Fame. I don't think people realize, like, she essentially came to indoor track in January, won a bunch of races, went to nationals in March, did well there, then returned to her other All-American, responsibilities with other teams. So truly remarkable athlete, one of the best I've ever seen come through. Honestly, for me, this is kind of really not my deal. I'm not super comfortable getting attention like this. I played defensive tackle. Our job was to keep linemen off of linebackers, right, Brownie? Like, I was supposed to be there to make Rosie and Randy and all those other guys make plays. In track, I threw a 16-pound ball and a 2-kilogram disc, right? Our events weren't even near the track itself. Like, they put us off in the corner like weirdos. So, we're not talking about touchdowns. We're not talking about, headlines with me. But that was fine, really, because, the accolades, any sort of external validation was really never the point. The point, the focus, and I tell my kids this all the time, what matters isn't really the results, it's the process. It's controlling the controllables, it's doing those sorts of things. And usually when you do that, the results come, right? As long as you have that mentality and really a why not me mentality, believing in yourself, you can really see what possibilities can happen. So, but the good thing about today is it's really not about me. I know a bunch of other inductees mentioned this, it's really about giving thanks and showing appreciation to the people who kind of made this happen, who supported us along the way, who really helped us with our process. I visited Union for the first time in '98. I had taken trips to Columbia, I had taken trips to Penn. I kind of came here really on my visit, because I honestly had nothing better to do that weekend. But I got here and it was fine. Really, Dino was here. Dino was my recruiter, Coach Audino, and we talked about academics. We talked about the community. We talked about things like that. And I came in Sunday morning from a late night on Saturday, as I'm sure many other athletes can remember the recruiting trips. And I gave him the spiel, and I kind of told him, it was great, but I'm probably not gonna be here. And honestly, the only other Division III school I was looking at that time was University of Rochester. And the only reason I was looking at them was because the coach at that time, the D-line coach, who's here today, wouldn't leave me alone. And he seemed somewhat unhinged, so I was kind of scared of him. And I used to go on America Online, when you had to dial up, that thing. The older people remember that. And I would go on for like 3 hours a night just so I wouldn't have to do the phone calls, because I was intimidated. But as the process played out, Dino kept on it, right? He was a great recruiter. And the thing about his message that was different than everybody else is it was consistent. And it wasn't really about like him or his program or his team. It was about the opportunities that he could provide me, that Union could provide me. And they were honestly the only school that didn't try to tell me, like, you can do this, here's when you can play, here's the success you may have, here's the sports that we want you on. It was all about them and their school. And Dino basically said, you come here, we're going to give you the opportunities to do what you need to do to be successful. So I took the leap of faith and I came to Union. And it wasn't always easy, but I was able to have a great deal of team, more importantly, and individual success. And I was able to, have those accomplishments based on some people that I'd like to highlight now. So first off, my parents, they weren't able to make it today, but just to show their dedication to me, they moved back to Michigan when I was in freshman, after my freshman season, and they still made every single home game that I played at Union. They would drive 12 hours on Friday, they'd come to the game, they'd take me out to dinner, which you can see I was a little bit bigger then, so that was expensive, and then they drove back 12 hours on Sunday. So, I can't thank them enough. I love them. I really appreciate it. And I'm just so blessed to have them. I also thank my family right now. My boys, Jackson and Mason, they're here making sure I don't mess up. My wife, Jessica's in the back. Their support, and the things that I'm currently involved with is just tremendous. And I wouldn't be able to do anything I do today without their love and support. Football team, as I mentioned, John Aldino did a great sales job. But really, he's the winningest coach in Union history on the football side. He has multiple players and teams inducted into the Hall of Fame, including the team later today. Across multiple eras of football here, he was able to reinvent the program multiple times. Coach Aldino, thank you. You're a Hall of Famer in my book. Coach Brownie, awesome to play for. The pregame speeches were amazing. I was really never sure, though, if you thought I was any good, but you kept putting me back out there. And I can say, you never, made me cry during a game, like Alan Fiore. Coach Perna. Coach Perna was the UR coach that I was mentioning. Coach Perna, I finally told him, I'm not going to U of R. And he was like, he's a Union grad. He was like, well, at least you're going to Union. Just hung up the phone. And then come to see, I show up for fall camp, and who's on the sideline? Coach Perna. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. But our relationship was great throughout when I got here. And the biggest compliment I can give Coach Perna is he was a full-time coach. He put in full-time work with our room, even though he was a part-time coach. So I appreciate all the work he put in with our D-line room. Coach Cottrell, as a program, the track program when I was around, it wasn't the same as it is now. We were there was more tiering, I think, with the sports then. These sports are here, other sports were here. That was before Jim's time. But Coach Cottrell always made sure I had the equipment I needed. I was able to go to the meets that would challenge me. And I think a lot of the time he probably did that out of his own pocket rather than the team budget. He's not here today, but you really can't ask for somebody to be more invested in your career than Coach Cottrell. Coach Riggy, who Allie mentioned, Coach Riggy was really heart and soul of Union track and field for a long time. And a lot of the work, that he did, kind of flew under the radar, went underappreciated. But, Coach Riggy was phenomenal, great athlete in his own right, and I really appreciate all the things he did. Finally, Coach Sandy Collins, Coach F. Gwynn, they were head coaches here at the time I was here in other sports. A lot of coaches then had second assignments where they had, they were assistants on the sports where they weren't the head coaches. And Coach Collins and Coach Gwynn actually accompanied me to nationals twice because Coach Cottrell and Coach Riggy couldn't make it. And to have them, when they had full-time sports to be involved with, their own personal lives, to come spend a week with me, to do that, to take time away from their team and their professional obligations, I really appreciate that. Training staff, Jill, I see you're here. I haven't had a chance to say hi yet. It's good to see you. And then obviously Cheryl, and I think everybody sitting here who's been an athlete has their own, their evolution of Cheryl story, right? You get here and you're like, why does she hate me so much, right? Because and it's great because you get here as a decorated high school athlete, and she makes you, earn it, right? High school's over. You get here, and it's you got to reestablish yourself. And as you do that, the relationship totally changes. And there's a respect and, an admiration for each other. And she's just the best. I can't thank enough, because I spent a lot of time in the training room. I really can't thank her enough for all the things she did. Teammates, track and field football, there's really too many to mention. Specifically, I'd like to call out my defensive line teammates who I came here with and were in my class, Bob Kelly, Colin Fletcher, and Dan Kroos. And I'm going to end it with a story about Dan Kroos, who unfortunately had to leave this morning because his wife got the flu last night. But, Dan and myself, we go back a long way. We played high school football together against each other. And so we knew each other for 4 years before we even got to Union. And senior day, Coast Guard game, we're holding on by a thread. Dan picks off a pass. Defensive tackle, player right next to me, picks off a pass with the game still in doubt. And he headed towards the end zone. And that's like every D lineman's dream, right? So he picks it off, and he probably needs one block to score a touchdown. So me being the great friend and teammate that I am, obviously, I sprint towards the guy, I pancake him, we go to the end zone, we celebrate. What a better way to cap off your senior season, right? Only that's not what happened. I saw he picked the pass off, I stopped, let him get tackled, because there was no way I was going to stand at events like this and listen to him talk about how he scored a touchdown for the next 20 years. So he didn't score. We still won the game, and that's how it played out. So anyway, thanks to everybody for everything. I appreciate it.